Oh boy, celebrity gossip. I know how much we all love that. But this story is actually interesting and important, and it shines a light on a bit of what's happening in the mainstream media around political correctness and comedy and things like that. For those that missed the story, Whoopi Goldberg on The View, very prominent show, let's admit it, said that the Holocaust wasn't about race. And this resulted in widespread condemnation from basically everybody. Now, most of the people on the right were like, oh, snap, I can't believe she just said that. And it was the people on the left and other hosts that were like, whoa, stop. You are wrong about this. It was kind of interesting to watch. They were discussing racial issues. Whoopi Goldberg said that it was basically just white people doing it to each other, it's just so wrong. I'm not just talking about the Jewish people and the Nazis. There were also, gay people and Polish people. It was very, very much about race and many other things. And for Whoopi Goldberg, she was like, it's just about humans doing it to humans. It's like, you clearly didn't think this one through. But looking at the story and the aftermath, it's really interesting because the one thing that strikes me is it's this question I've asked before. I'm sure many of you have asked. What happened to these people? They've gone insane. You know what I think it is when I see this, right? So here's the update. Whoopi Goldberg then goes on Colbert's show and she tries explaining what she really meant, making everything worse. She said, quote, as a black person, I think of race as being something that I can see. Ma'am, are you saying that when you look at a Jewish person and you look at a German person, you just see a white person? Because the racist and just very offensive caricatures of Jewish people. Look, the reality is when you're in Europe, you can tell if someone is like Eastern European or like Spanish. They're both white. Oh, no. See, this is the problem with wokeness and what's happening with all of these people. In their world, white is white no matter what. And you have a conversation, and we see this meme all the time where there's a meme about this, where someone will say something like, all white people are racist. And the response is, do you mean Slavic people, Germanic people, Nordic people, Mediterranean? Like, what do you mean by that? Because they're not all the same. And so it's really interesting because I wonder what Whoopi Goldberg means. Lighter complexion. There are Jewish people who have dark skin. There are, again, stereotypes about what Jewish people look like. And I think it's fair to point out, like I already said, having traveled all over Europe, I think Europeans get it. You can look at someone and be like, oh, that person must be Italian. You can look at someone, this person is Polish, or this person is German, this person is British. Because people look different and they have different backgrounds. Now, the problem is we don't want to judge people based on their looks. We want to judge them based on what's inside. But what I see in this story is that Whoopi Goldberg has a woke worldview. White is white as far as she's concerned. So when she looks back at the Holocaust, she just says it was all white people. I'm not surprised by this. I got to be honest, because we know that many racial identitarians, regardless of if it's white or not white or whatever, have very disparaging views of Jewish people, and they believe insane conspiracy theories. We've seen what's happened with, the Women's March and Farrakhan. For those that aren't familiar with those stories, I know they happened some time ago. But the leaders, the organizers of the Women's March, deeply anti-Semitic, believing crazy conspiracy theories about Jewish people. Surprise, surprise. It makes its way up the woke chain to people like Whoopi Goldberg. Now, the other thing I see here, which is really interesting, because we've got a couple things. One, it's that, the woke people think all white people are the same. And it's just frankly weird, in my opinion. And there's a question over whether or not Jewish people are considered white. Often you'll see people on Twitter who are Jewish say they are or they aren't. So, it's not for me to talk about. But we can also see something else interesting in that Whoopi Goldberg is a deeply offensive person. This article from the Daily Mail goes way back and talks about some of the really, really offensive things she's done, and she refused to back down. Now, well, she's definitely trying to back down, but this is a really interesting. Let's read through this. The Daily Mail reports Whoopi Goldberg stoked more controversy on Monday evening when she half-heartedly tried to apologize for saying the Holocaust isn't about race by asserting race is only about skin color, and the Nazis had to do the work to find out who was Jewish. Yeah, kind of. First of all, according to the Auschwitz Museum, they were absolutely targeted based on race, not based on culture. That being said, there are many ways you can tell that someone may be Jewish. Perhaps they have a yarmulke, or if someone is like a Hasidic Jew, you can clearly tell that they're, when they wear certain clothes, it's part of their culture. So now you have this multifaceted racism and I guess culturalism with World War II Germany. I mean, you have people who don't wear certain clothing because they're scared of people finding out their background, because there is a racial and cultural component to that. So it's worse than just racism. Here's what we say. She said, oh man, during an interview at the Late Show with Goldberg after her comments on The View about the Holocaust caused furious international outcry, Goldberg said she understood why she had angered people, but she didn't stop there, and instead tried to explain why she thought the Holocaust was not about race because Jews are white. When you talk about being a racist, you can't call this racism, she said. This was evil. This wasn't based on skin. You couldn't tell who was Jewish. That is not true. You had to delve deeply and figure it out. My point is they had to do the work. You see, look, let's just talk about reality. I went to Thailand. It was Chinese New Year, and I was standing on this street with thousands of people all celebrating. I could see over everyone's head. They were all on average shorter than I was, because this group of people from Thailand have a certain height, right? That doesn't mean all Asian people or not even all Thai people. It just meant for whatever reason in this area. This is one of the reasons I actually oppose racism from a logical standpoint. I mean, obviously there's an emotional reaction of like, dude, leave people alone, let people be who they are. But logically, it doesn't make sense to, in my opinion, hold racist views or uphold racial segregation. Because you end up, I think, I was talking about this with Seamus from Freedom Tunes the other night. And he was like, imagine if saying like the rape of Nanking wasn't about race because they're all Asian. It's like, dude, that's insane, right? But you can see that Whoopi Goldberg is overtly racist. She thinks she has this reductive view of what race is. It's only about your skin color and therefore nothing else matters. But you have to understand that, when I bring up Thai people, for instance, I went to Sweden. Everybody was taller than me. Yeah, different cultures, regardless of their skin color, have different, can be pointed out. It's a reality. We don't want that. Like, that's the point of opposing racism. We look back in time and there's like the talk about how the Irish were mistreated and all this stuff. And people would be like, are you Irish and stuff? I'm not sure if it was as bad as some people make it out to be, but Irish need not apply signs. So I've read some that there were like myths that didn't happen, but I don't know. All I know is the tropes exist, but I'll put it this way. If you are in France and, you see like a group of people who are all like 6 feet tall, men and women, you might be like, maybe they're from Scandinavia, because we know that people from Scandinavia tend to be taller. Does it mean they are? No. But, I'll put it this way. There are attributes of different ethnic backgrounds that are easily identifiable. And that's the point of actively opposing racism, because we want to say things like, hey, look, that guy is from, Somalia and that guy is from Haiti. They both have a certain skin color, but they're very, very different. The Haitian guy's a lot taller. The Somali guy's a lot smaller. Just because their skin is a certain tone doesn't mean they have everything in common. That's the problem with judging people based on skin color, who you don't know where they're from. You don't know who they are. And you have to give people a chance. See, this is exactly the point. Whoopi Goldberg is deeply racist. And that's the issue here with wokeness. This is exactly it exemplified. Let's read some more. Okay. Otherwise, I'm just going to go on a rant on this stuff. In another part of okay, here's what she says. When you talk about being racist, you can't call this racism. It was evil. If the Klan is coming down the street and I'm standing with a Jewish friend, I'm going to run. But if my friend decides not to run, they'll get passed by most of the times because you can't tell who is Jewish. You don't know. That is outright nuts for several reasons. Now, first and foremost, I understand why if she saw the Klan coming on the street, she'd run. I think for the most part in the United States, you don't have to worry about that. And like what I mean is, if you're on a dark street and there's people with Klan robes, oh yeah, I'd recommend getting out of there because these are nasty people. No, for real. And that's a shame. You shouldn't have to do that. I think if you're like downtown, in a big city and there's a march happening with a bunch of, racists or whatever, I'd understand why you would, but I think you'll be safe. I think you will. I think, we don't tolerate that kind of stuff. And they'll try and come out and put out their message. But I would understand someone wanting to move away from there or get away from these people. Run away, call it whatever you want. Yes, getting away from these people. If it was a bunch of Antifa, I'd recommend the exact same thing for other groups of people for sure. But I think it's just hilarious that Whoopi Goldberg would be like, the Klan is coming down the street and she's with a Jewish person and the Jewish person will get passed by most times. I don't think that's true. I really don't think that's true. And it's remarkable outside of the cultural issues. What she's really saying is that if the Jewish person wasn't in any way acting culturally or displaying any cultural symbols of their Jewish heritage or whatever, and they just happen to be Jewish, maybe they might get passed by more than her. So I can understand that. I'm not going to play games. I mean, I understand what she's saying. That's the problem of racists. They see skin color. So why would she then play the exact same game? And furthermore, I got to be honest, people, they still might be like, hey, is that person Jewish? You know what I mean? They had issues with ethnicity, not with race. Wrong. Because most of the Nazis were white people, and most of the people were attacking were white people. So to me, thinking, how can you say it's about race when you are fighting each other? She's just outright wrong. I'm just going to throw it to the Auschwitz Memorial. Check this out. This is the Auschwitz Memorial Twitter account. They say to Whoopi Goldberg, Holocaust, the Destruction of European Jews, a 7-chapter online course about the history of the Holocaust. Links to all chapters below in the tweet below. They link to this image. A chart presenting a pseudoscientific division of people into races, forming a basis of the racial profiles of Nazi Germany, according to this chart. The only racially pure people are those who have 4 Germanic grandparents. German citizens with 3 or 4 Jewish ancestors, first and second column on the right, were Jews. The second and third column from the left were called mixed blood categories, depending on the number of Jewish ancestors they had. Now, I'm not insane, right? I want to be fair to Whoopi Goldberg. It is absolutely true that many Jewish people were able to hide and pretend they weren't Jewish. That's true. But we're talking about scales here. Many Jewish people weren't able to hide who they were based on certain physical attributes and characteristics they had. So depending on, the person's background, depending on how mixed, or not they could have been, or depending on just how they looked, they may have been able to pass, as it were, a concept presented by many on the left. But Whoopi Goldberg, of course, would not have been able to. So that's a fair point. But for her to take it to the logical extreme of, therefore, it's not about race, it's just absolutely insane. So again, I really want to reiterate this point. I feel like Whoopi Goldberg is taking wokeism to its extreme, that white people can't be racist, when in fact there's just nuance in this. It's fascinating to me because intersectionality, which was the rising ideology before ultimately critical race theory became more dominant. But intersectionality is being, obviously a part of that. They believed that every person of a different background experienced racism differently. Now that we've reached critical race theory logical extremity, it's just like, well, if you look white, then you don't experience racism at all. Period. There we go. And anyway, I don't want to harp too much on the controversy with Whoopi Goldberg. She tries to apologize, but it doesn't work, and she defaults to she says, quote, I feel being black when we talk about race is a very different thing to me. So I said I thought the Holocaust wasn't about race and it made people angry. I'm getting a lot of mail from angry folks, but I thought it was a salient discussion because as a black person, I think of race as being something that I can see. That's fascinating to me. Something she can see. When she looks at 2 different racial groups who have fair skin, she says, they're all white. That's it. Yo, that's called being racist. It's like what I mentioned with Seamus. If you looked at an Asian person and said they're all Chinese, we consider that to be racist. I got to be fair. I can certainly understand why someone who's, from the United States hasn't interacted a lot with people of other racial backgrounds might think, everyone from Asia is Chinese or something. I'm not trying to, I think people deserve compassion and understanding. We try to educate them. And we can say the same thing of Whoopi Goldberg. Like, hey, let me help you understand. This wokeness stuff is making you nuts. You look at a Polish person, you look at a Spanish person or someone from Portugal, and you're going to be like, these people look very, very different. They're very different. Now, you can call them both white, I suppose. But actually, here's the crazy thing. The Coalition for Communities of Color have said that Slavic people are people of color. And we've made this point. This is why I say wokeness is insane. None of it makes sense. Let's throw it back to Whoopi Goldberg's past. Because I want to get into the point about what's happened to these people, right? Wokeness has driven them insane. You get woke, you go broke. Look at all these tweets. Whoopi Goldberg attempts to all lives matter the Holocaust. Wow. So everybody clearly went off on her. But it gets interesting because we go back in time to when Whoopi Goldberg was dating Ted Danson. They had put together this comedy routine where Ted Danson wore black makeup on his face, white makeup on his lips. You get the point. And he started saying the N-word over and over again and talking about Whoopi Goldberg's body. And it was deeply, deeply offensive to a lot of people. And Whoopi Goldberg laughed it off and said, I don't care. Why is that? She said, I like it. Too bad. You know, that's what's fascinating. No joke. They say, you know, let me see if they have that quote here. When Ted made the jokes, people were offended. Where is it? Whoopi Goldberg said, you know, she liked it, whatever. If that's what Whoopi and Ted find funny in their bedroom, it's not funny to the outside world. So they go on to mention that they say Goldberg was unrepentant, declaring, I don't care if you don't like it. I do. Later, she said she resented the criticism from people who don't even know her. If they knew me, they would know that Whoopi has never been about political correctness. What happened to these people? Where in the past, they would be shocking and offensive and say, too bad, grow up. Wow. I wish we had more of that today, to be completely honest. If Whoopi Goldberg really believed the things she believed about the Holocaust, why wouldn't she just be like, no, you guys are wrong. Here's what I'm saying. Deal with it. No, she immediately backs down like, oh, not only have they gone insane from wokeness, they've also become spineless in whatever it is they claim to believe. I think you see something with this. You see that Whoopi Goldberg doesn't believe what she's saying. The fact that she backs down immediately and is like, I stand corrected, I don't know, shows she cares more about not offending people than believing anything. I think Whoopi Goldberg's statement on the Holocaust, she thought was actually woke. She thought she was being politically correct because they keep saying white people can't be racist. So this is her saying, you know, the woke people have said. And then when it causes a backlash because there's no logical consistency within wokeness, she now just says, sure, whatever. She used to say, here's what I like. And if you don't like it, too bad. Yo, everybody has lost their mind. You know, grow a spine a little bit. I guess back then, you know, it was the early 90s. You could be offensive and maintain your career and say, too bad. She did some other jokes where apparently she made a joke about Bush and she lost a sponsor. They mentioned this in the show. So I don't know if they say what Slim Fast, a lucrative contract with Slim Fast. She lost it because she made jokes about George W. Bush saying we got to put Bush back where it belongs. And I don't mean the White House or something. Ha ha ha. It's kind of a tired pun, but sure, whatever. And she was like, I've done material on every president. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna, get angry. The Manhattan-born performer found herself cast into the wilderness after her comments, and has since said she didn't work for 5 years. For a good 3 years, I couldn't even get arrested, she told the New York Times. Eventually, I was lucky enough to get a radio show, and then Barbara Walters asked if I would consider doing The View. That's amazing. She got canceled for being offensive to the president? Well, I'll tell you this. I think this is a part of where it all begins. You know, this is mid-2000s. We're starting to see the rise of cancel culture wokeness around the end of the 2000s, but it wasn't really prominent or bad. No, it wasn't. Into the early 2010s is when it started to spike and skyrocket. If you look at the LexisNexis data, we see, all this social justice talk around 2008, 2009. So Whoopi Goldberg, she experienced something very early on, being offensive, talking about a president. She couldn't work. She felt that pain. And all of a sudden, now she's scared. Now she's willing to say whatever she thinks she should say, right? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. This was 1994. She made the Bush comment. So I don't know what she's talking about. No, okay, it says 94, but up here it says 2004. I think it was 2004, not 94. Actually, I don't know. I can't tell. They got it wrong. They say she was invited to speak at the Democratic National Convention in 2004. She made a crude joke about George W. Bush. So I think clearly 1994 is the wrong date they have in that photograph. But I think Whoopi experienced the pain. She got a job finally, and now she's just going to say whatever she's told to say. Her opinions are trash. They're based on fake news and manipulation, but I don't know. I saw this story, and aside from it being an insane comment, a lot of people were putting that comment on Whoopi Goldberg. And that's what I thought was interesting here. They say Whoopi Goldberg said this, and she was wrong and crazy, and all these tweets come out criticizing her, and I'm like, I don't think it's a Whoopi Goldberg thing. I think it's a wokeness thing. Wokeness outright says white people can't be only white people can be racist. Did I get that wrong previously? Maybe I said something wrong. Only white people can be racist. That's why she thinks it's not about race in this. I think I accidentally said it. White people can't be racist. No, I meant to say only white people can be racist and black people can't be racist. So in her worldview, based on wokeness, she looks at the Holocaust. She's like, how is it racist? It's just white people. Right. Because what happened to the Polish people wasn't about race, Whoopi. No, it clearly was. Slavic people are different. I just ultimately comes down to these people have a warped sense of reality. It has more to do with being scared of losing their job than anything else. And Whoopi Goldberg probably thought she was being politically correct when she said it, which is absolutely fascinating because of how insane her comments were. But I mentioned this last night on IRL, on Tim Kist IRL podcast. Right now, the left simultaneously supports Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech that, one day my 4 little children will be judged based on the content of their character, not the color of their skin, while also saying things like this and advocating for a racist worldview where you would discriminate. In California, they tried to repeal the civil rights language from their constitution. They failed. How can you be progressive and simultaneously call for discriminating on the basis of race while claiming that you support, Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream of not doing that? It makes no sense. And that's the point. There's no principle. There's no logic. There is only fear and a cult that will say whatever they think they need to say to fit in. And that's Whoopi Goldberg. And that's all these other comedians. That's where we're going. But you know what? I don't care. I think I'll say this. In today's world, it just so happens that I am unwilling to change my principles for a bunch of crackpot lunatics. However, my worldview, my opinions and principles are acceptable enough that I'm allowed to have a show. There are many people who are unwilling to change their opinions, but their opinions are deeply offensive, so they get banned from YouTube instantly. You see how this works? There may come a time where my opinions are deemed too extreme and offensive, and then I will just get banned because I'm not going to pull a Whoopi Goldberg and just be like, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, geez, I didn't realize. I can't believe I was being so offensive. No, I know. I'll be reasonable, I suppose, and say sometimes people accidentally misspeak, talking fast and blathering on for a long time. Like, I can't even remember. Did I accidentally say white people can't be racist? Because that was a mistake. I mean, I meant to say only white people can be racist in the woke worldview. Sometimes stuff like that happens. And if I did that, I'll be like, I didn't mean to say that. I'm not sorry for, I guess I apologize for making the mistake in that capacity. I feel no remorse. It's just like it was an accident. You know what I mean? If Whoopi Goldberg misspoke and said, I didn't mean to say that, what I meant to say was this, I'd be like, oh, okay. But in this instance, you can see, I think in the end, if you follow wokeness to its natural conclusion, this is what you'll end up with. You will end up with nonsensical, deeply offensive, insane comments where you're like, well, if Jews are white and Germans are white, then nothing happened, right? Whoopi, that's crazy. Obviously, she thinks something happened. I'm being hyperbolic. But she's like, it wasn't race. Yeah. There's like a chart showing racial breakdowns. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.